My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about things that you need to do in order to find the perfect ideal house that you're looking for here in Alaska. This is going to be talking about how to find this stuff and then also make sure you're in a position to win when you actually do find it. Before we get started though, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and let's go and jump into today's video. First tip I'm going to give you is really dialing in on what area it is that you want to look at and making sure that you are searching only for stuff within your parameter. Now, what I mean by that is if you're looking for stuff just in a specific area or a specific budget or any one of the big ticket items that are important to you, try to make sure you stay within those parameters, because once you start looking around at a bunch of other stuff, you see more options, but are they more options for you, or is it just adding more noise to what's going on? Because if you can cut through all the unnecessary properties that are just going to clutter up your feed, then that is going to be a huge benefit to you because you're much more focused. Additionally, and I cannot emphasize this enough, it is imperative that you make sure you are pre-qualified before you start getting too far along in this process. You want to make sure you know what your budget is and what you're going to be comfortable paying for on a monthly basis before we start physically going and looking at properties. And the reason that we do that, number one, it's kind of not very respectful to the seller's time, thus showing up and expecting them to just completely disrupt their entire day when we haven't even done the legwork of making sure you can qualify for the property. And also, if we find the perfect property and you're not ready for it, then there's a very good chance that someone else is going to be able to just step in and swoop that property up before you can get pre-qualified. And despite what a lot of the loan companies out there like Rocket Mortgage make it sound, no, you cannot get pre-qualified based off of a click of a button. That is stupid. That is misleading. And honestly, those companies should be facing some kind of class action lawsuit for trying to promote it that way, because it's a huge disinformation campaign. And honestly, it just results in a lot of buyers that are very disappointed and lose out on houses because it's more complicated than they thought. So yes, do not fall for that. And that kind of brings me into my next one. Pick a local lender to work with. Now, people get really weird when I start talking about this, but if you're looking for just the optimal way to make sure you get into the property you want to get into, really consider working with a local lender, because the listing agent is going to usually know who that lender is. They are going to have a good reputation. They're going to be predictable. That's really going to be an important asset to the seller, that the lender has a good reputation, they're local, and also they're not beholden to a enormous bureaucratic oversight in another state where they may or may not have a clue what's going on in Alaska in general. Yes, we can make stuff work with large out-of-state lending companies. It is definitely not the preference, and most listing agents are going to see if it's an out-of-state lender, and they're going to make sure that the buyer or that the seller understands that it's not preferable to have an out-of-state lender, because usually they don't really understand what's going on in Alaska. Now, again, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a foregone conclusion that you can get what you want, but I think you should also really consider using a local lender because it sets you up better. But again, that's your decision. I try not to go in too much more than that, because you guys start getting really weird every time I bring this up. Now, let's go ahead and take a break real quick here before we go too much further. And I'm sure as a lot of you are aware, if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast. By the way, it's one of the most shared podcasts in the world on Spotify. So thank you very much for that. If you'd like to go listen to that, it is going to be in the show notes down below. Go ahead and go click on that and it'll take you to the podcast. And what we do is we interview people who've recently moved up here so you can hear what it's like living up here and going through that process from people who have actually recently done it. And if you also want a copy of my relocation guide, reach out on my website, put relocation guide in the comments section so I know what to send you. Now let's go and finish up today's video. One really handy tip that you can do to really help you narrow down what area you want to move into is grocery shopping in all the areas that you're considering purchasing. This is something that is really important. It's going to be something you're going to do on the regular wherever you are, and it'll kind of give you a good sense for the feeling of the area by going through there. Now, the next couple tips is all going to be about increasing your speed. So this says, okay, we know what property we're looking for. We have it dialed in. We're pre-qualified, and we know exactly, what area that you're looking at. And these next ones are designed to really increase your speed at this point. So number one is making sure that we're not relying on email notifications for new listings. The days of being able to just rely on, email listings coming in and you're being able to see it like the next day and then we can go and do something, it's not quite as gone as what it was back in 2020, because back then, if you were relying on those emails, you were almost not worth trying. Like it was just that brutal. You had to be like there on the day to even have a fighting chance. And luckily, it's not quite at that point, but it's still pretty true that if you're relying just on emails, notifications to let you know what's going on with the new inventory that's coming out, you're usually going to be behind everybody else. So get some kind of search app. I have a search app that I'd be more than happy to send over to you for you to use. Works just like Zillow, except you don't have a ton of ads coming in. So, that's a nice little thing for most people. The other thing, and this might vary, it's called a high D personality, where I'm a very upfront, to the point, give it to me in bullet points kind of a person. But when you're explaining what it is that you're looking for to a real estate agent, less is better. Okay, summarize it within about 30 seconds or less. I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on an acre with some privacy and preferably with a fence. I can work with that. And just a little bit about how it is you plan on using the property, but that's really about it. I've had people before that spend about 30 to 40 minutes giving me every nuanced detail about what it is that they're looking for. And honestly, I'm confused. I'm turned around. I don't know what's important at that point, because I literally just got word vomit all over me trying to parse this through and figure out what's actually important. So less words is better. Okay, give it to us just in bullet points on what it is that you're looking for. Now, when you're trying to select the area that you're going to, one thing you really want to check out is the crime maps. Now, this is something that I always mention to my buyers that you want to go ahead and go and do before you purchase in an area, just to make sure you're comfortable with the crime that's in an area, because let's face it, there's no such thing as an area with no crime. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the amount of crime in the area. And the other thing you might want to consider doing is actually going and renting an Airbnb in that particular area when you're just getting started. That is going to give you a great way to really get kind of a test drive of the area before you make the big leap and decide to actually live there. It's not always doable, but it's great when you can actually work it out that way. Another thing that might actually be pretty useful for you, if you're in an area where terrain and land is more applicable, like out in the valley, Kenai, really anywhere outside of Anchorage, you might go check out some topographical maps and get a sense for what the wind patterns are like in the area. For example, over in Palmer, you have the glacier right at the end of that Kinnick River, and it's right at the end of this big valley between mountains, so you get a lot of wind just coming and going right through that valley all the time. And that's an example of just looking at the topography in the area and just understanding how it's probably going to create wind patterns and anything else that might be of concern to you. Another thing you might really want to consider, if you're trying to get a sense for what the housing is like in each one of these areas, you might go take a look at the zoning and kind of the zoning maps for the area. Because if you're looking for just kind of this nice, quiet, super slow paced, not really connected to anything, kind of a Mayberry pace of life kind of a neighborhood, and you see it's right next to an industrial zoned area, then that might give you an indication this might not be exactly what it is that you're looking for. So to get the full picture of the area, you might go take a look at some zoning maps for the specific area that we're looking at, just to make sure that it kind of fits what it is that you're looking for. Last but not least, if we have the ability to review the as-built survey that sometimes sellers will put up on the MLS from when they might have done something like that beforehand, I always make sure that I go and read like the special notes that they have off to the side. And these are going to be notes that are coming directly from the surveyor who recently went out there. And sometimes you can find some information about the property right there that you're just not going to find anywhere else. So that's a great resource that you definitely want to check out if you do have access to it. So I sure hope this has been useful for you. If it has, make sure to give this video a like. And the good news is that whatever it is that you're looking for, chances are good that it's already does exist up here. There's always going to be some give and take. I'd say for most people, you're going to be good to be getting about 90-95% what it is that you're looking for. If you're looking for higher than that, good chance you're probably going to end up building. There's always going to be some give and take in what it is that you're looking for, but the good news is we can usually narrow it down, and these tools are designed to help you to narrow it down, kind of identify what it is that you're looking for, and then be in a position to actually take advantage of the tools that you have and actually pounce. So make sure that you use these as such. Reach out if you have questions, and we'll see you next time.